This is David O'Gray. You know, Candace Owens, her reaction to her friend Charlie Kirk's death has been, let's say, cinematic. She's been suspicious of everything. His death, his memorial, the investigation, the weather that day. Probably the font on a coroner's report, right? And to be fair, she and others have convinced me, I'm not a hard sell, on the possibility of government cover-up. You usually have me at FBI. I'm ready to go. But Candace doesn't really know what happened or why. Her strategy is basically to throw a bunch of conspiracy spaghetti at the wall and see what sticks. So let's run down the pantry shelf here. In her recent videos and podcast episodes, Owens has floated a wide array of theories, geopolitical, institutional, theatrical. First, she suggests that Kirk's evolving stance on Israel made him a target, accusing Prime Minister Netanyahu of misrepresenting Kirk's final letter and implying that outlets like New York Post are fronts for Mossad. Second, she claims Kirk was preparing an internal audit of Turning Point USA, including a new ethics division called Doge, which sounds less like a watchdog agency and more like a crypto meme with a badge. Right? She's challenged Turning Point USA to publicly deny her claims, threatening to release videos if they don't. Third, she alleges that hedge fund manager Bill Ackman staged an intervention with Kirk over his Israel views, possibly involving threats or blackmail, claims Ackman has denied. Fourth, she accuses the FBI of pressuring Utah authorities to close the case prematurely and frame Tyler Robinson as a lone gunman, calling the official narrative a federal concoction. She points out that everyone involved in the case, from the FBI agents to the judge, to the coroner, to the lead surgeon, were all brand new, implying a coordinated setup. Fifth, Owens disputes Robinson's identity as the shooter, citing eyewitness accounts and video footage showing a man in tactical gear on the roof, which contradicts the official description. Sixth, she questions the ballistic evidence, saying the bullet was too fragmented to match Robinson's rifle. Seventh, she suggests that Kirk being shot was being shot in the throat was symbolic. It was like a deliberate act meant to silence his voice. These claims and others have drawn backlash from conservatives like his pastor, Charlie Kirk's pastor, and former colleagues who are accusing Owens of exploiting a tragedy. Even far-right clowns like Nick Fuentes have distanced themselves from her rhetoric. And you know, when a clown like Nick Fuentes says you've gone too far, maybe you have wandered into the circus tent. But if that weren't enough, and you knew this one had to be coming. You knew this spaghetti was going to be thrown at the wall sooner or later. It's the Freemasons. The Freemasons killed Charlie Kirk. And not just any Freemasons. It was a Jewish kind. The Jewish Freemasons killed Charlie Kirk. Cue the Tinfoil Symphony.
Because I don't care what side of the aisle that you are on, you need to understand that the ADL is not, nor has it ever been, what it purports to be, okay? Purports to be, we're just looking out and hate speech and extremism. No. The reality is the ADL was born out of a Jewish Freemason organization known as B'nai B'rith. What happened then is that his buddies over at the Freemasonic Lodge, B'nai B'rith, assembled the ADL to gaslight the public. No, Leo Frank wasn't guilty. Look what happened after.
You had David L. Gray at FBI. You lost me at the Freemasons. I could have tried to roll with you on this one, even though it's crazy work. But when you had to go and use the word Freemasonic, which is always a dead giveaway that someone doesn't know what the hell they're talking about. Freemasonic, it isn't even a real word. At least belonging to one that belongs to the lexicon of Freemasons. It's like saying Catholicity or papistical. It tells you that you're wearing a tinfoil hat without telling us that you're wearing a tinfoil hat. Now, here's where we need to slow down and do some actual critical thinking. Because when people start tossing around terms like Freemasonic and blaming Jewish Freemasons for everything from Charlie Kirk's death to the price of eggs, we're not just being sloppy, we're being counterproductive. There's a real difference between an organization that is truly Masonic and one that's fraternal in nature because some of his members, some of his founders happen to be Freemasons. And that distinction matters. A Masonic organization is one that's beholden to a Grand Lodge of Freemasons, either as an independent, an affiliate, an adopted, or a concordant body. These are the ones that the Catholic Church has consistently prohibited the faithful from joining because they offer a parallel moral law, they practice naturalism, and they propose a counterfeit path to salvation through their own sacraments. But if you're an organization that's not beholden to a Grand Lodge and your founders just happen to be Freemasons, you're not Masonic. You're just a Rotary Club with better robes, right? So take B'nai B'rith. Yes, some of the founders were Freemasons, Jewish Freemasons. Yes, it adopted lodge style, rituals, and regalia, but it's not a Masonic lodge. It's a Jewish service organization built to foster solidarity and mutual aid in a society that excluded Jews from mainstream fraternal orders. Yes, they meet in secret and have been linked to machinations, but the same goes for the Carbonari, who wrote the Alta Vendetta, the Sons of Liberty of the American Revolution, the Sons of Italy, the Black College Greek letter organizations, the frats like Phi Beta Sigma and Omega Psi Phi, and even the Katipunan in the Philippines, who played a role in their country's revolution. These groups borrowed, yes, fraternal scaffolding, degrees, titles, robes, not because they're secretly Masonic, but because that structure, I think it worked for them. It was familiar. It was functional. It was like using a Swiss army knife to build a community. You had ritual, hierarchy, symbolism, all in one. Right? Yeah, most of their early members were either Freemasons or men who aspired to be Freemasons, because men who join secret societies tend to join more than one. It's like a tattoo. Once you get one, you start thinking about the next one. In fact, in my most recent interview with former high-ranking Freemason John McGee, we explore why that is. Why do Freemasons belong to so many other secret organizations? In another interview with former Freemason John Salza, we explore why many Freemasons also belong to the Knights of Columbus. Right? So yeah, some of these groups were revolutionary. The Katipunan, for example, was explicitly anti-colonial and founded by Filipino Freemasons like Andre Bonifacio. Others like Sigma Phi Phi and Omega Psi Phi were cultural, right? They were cultural, designed to uplift Black identity, scholarship, and civic engagements. They weren't created to hide some sort of esoteric agenda. They thought they were building community through Gnostic and elitist structures. Maybe they were, but it doesn't make them Masonic. It makes them fraternal with some beliefs we should question whether they align with the gospel of Jesus Christ. And here's the theological kicker. When we conflate every fraternal group with Freemasonry, we don't help evangelize Freemasons. We muddy the water. We make it harder to have real conversations about what Freemasonry actually teaches and how it conflicts with Catholic doctrine and why the church has consistently warned against it. Instead, we end up chasing shadows and alienating people who might otherwise be open to the truth. This kind of myth making from Candace Owens isn't new. The Nazi propaganda machine perfected it, spreading lies about Jewish-Masonic conspiracy to control the world, linking Freemasonry to Bolshevism, and even suggesting, that Jesus was a Freemason. He's a secret Freemason, they said. The Nazis. These weren't just fringe ideas. They were weaponized to justify persecution, war, and genocide. So when we echo these tropes today, even unintentionally, we're playing with fire. We can try to explain the unexplainable about Charlie Kirk's murder. We can ask the hard questions. We can challenge the official narrative. But we don't have to turn it into a joke. And we definitely don't need to resurrect century-old propaganda to do so. So I would say let's be clear-eyed. Let's be rigorous. Let's ask hard questions. And let's stop throwing everything at the wall just to see what sticks. Especially when some of it is toxic to evangelization. This is David O'Gray.
From war into the world, blessings and peace. Liturgical light in a cultural space. Cutting through the clutter, it's David L. Gray. In pursuit of truth, the Dominican way.
It's David L. Gray. It's David L. Gray. Hit that like, share, and sub if you please. Hit that like, share, and sub if you please. David L. Gray. It's David L. Gray. Sub if you please. Hit that like, share, and sub if you please.
From war into the world, blessings and peace. Liturgical light in a cultural space. Cutting through the clutter, it's David L. Gray. In pursuit of truth, the Dominican